Hi everyone, this is Apollo. Today I am going to create a series of videos that's going to um, create a to-do app that leverages AWS. So the basic architecture of this is going to look something like this. On the client side, let's put in architecture here. On the client side, there is going to be, we're going to use Angular. And on the server side, we're going to utilize the API gateway that the Angular client can call and get access to some of the data that's going to reside somewhere. We're going to use Lambda to actually do the logic on the back end, and then we'll use MongoDB to store our data. So the to-do app is going to be a typical to-do app. From a functional perspective, let's look at the business part of this. So we'll have these view the to-do list is one thing that we need to do, and then add to-do item is another. You can go and edit, just basic CRUD here. Edit, darn it, I wish it would stop doing that auto capitalize. Edit to-do item, and then delete. Jiminy crickets. Delete to-do item. So from a business perspective, this is pretty straightforward. We're going to do create, edit, delete, search, which is just a basic CRUD. And then we'll go through each step of these. So we got Angular, API Gateway, Lambda, MongoDB. Another thing we could implement as well is authorization and authentication using Cognito. And these components, API Gateway, Lambda, Cognito, are all AWS components. Angular is not AWS, but it's sort of a common library out there to create your client. MongoDB just to store your data. So hopefully this is a pretty straightforward exercise. We'll try to pull in some of the tools that you can use with AWS that helps you to easily deploy your code to these various components. One of the first things you should do is install Nodejs, and that's going to help us with our packaging. So if you just go to a website, let's go to Google here and search for Nodejs install, and let's see, let's do this, Node.js download the Mac OS installer, but install Node.js, and we're going to pull in MongoDB at some point. That will be useful, and then we'll also might utilize some other tools, but make sure you have Node.js installed. Another tool you should have installed is Angular. So let's go through, and I think it's Angular IO. And Angular IO has a template tool called Angular Client. So let's take a look at the client CLI. Let's call it CLI. Where is it? Change log, blah 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 blah. No, that's not it. Application shell. I don't think that's it either. ng cli. This documentation's changed a little bit, but let's do Angular cli. Let's do that. CLI.Angular client. Okay, so with Angular client, this is going to make creating your shell application for your client stuff a lot easier. So let's go ahead and go here and do. So these are the commands to create or to sort of download the Angular command line tool, and you have to have npm installed, and we sort of did that a little bit. And you can go in and create a new Angular client application, and you just type in ng new my dream app, etc. cd, change to that directory, and ng serve just runs a local web server that will bring up the application that you just created in the browser. So download Angular client and install it using npm. You don't really download, you do npm install. -g installs it globally, and this is the module that is going to install. Alright, so let's go in and go to our Finder, and let's I originally had it so I would go in, let's do this, Documents, and let's go in and go into Development. Let's go, it's AWS, so that would come under, really doesn't come under anything, so let's create a new folder. We'll call it AWS, and create another folder. Let's call it To Do. Alright, so what we should do is go to this directory, and I have a little shortcut that I created here that lets me open up Terminal. You could probably do this from here. Terminal, and let's go in, let me quit this. Let's do terminal, and my current directory is that. I'm in Documents. Let's go to Development. Go to that folder that I created, and go to my To-Do folder. Actually, I'm trying to think, according to the website, install ng new my dream app. This ng new automatically creates that folder, so let's do this. Let's go to rmdir to do, and then let's go ahead and do ng new to do, and it should create that folder for me. Blah blah blah. It did that. Installing packages for tooling via npm. Just pulling in all of the dependencies that it's going to have. Still doing it. Hopefully I'll fast forward through this. Okay, cool. So it successfully created my project, and now I can go in here and change to my to-do folder and invoke this ng serve, and it'll automatically sort of compile everything, run this miniature Angular server, web server, and then it should bring it up. It should bring up the app, maybe not, but we can inspect that and see. So package JSON, it went in and created all of these dependency. It's pulling in the Angular animations, common compiler, etc. If you go to source and look at the main TS, it's sort of bootstrapping this application module, which lives here. And in the app module, here's the HTML for it. All it's doing is it's creating this list, and it's a bunch of links to tutorials, etc. But it created this app module which does this bootstrap to this app component. The app component its template file is this app component HTML, which doesn't have much. And then here we can go and modify this so that we can create some list components. We can edit stuff in here easily, and we won't do anything too fancy with routing for now, but just a simple site that has the Angular to do client, and then we're going to use in this app component, we'll just add some event handlers to add, create, delete list stuff. All right, let's see what it sort of created. I have to figure out what the port number is for getting to this guy. Let's see if I have some older local host. I think it's 4200. So 4200 is where is the port number for our application. So this is the out-of-the-box thing that creates welcome to app, created some links, and just for the fun of it, we can go in here and modify the app component HTML and just put something here so that we know we're sort of working. So let's just say hello world. We'll get rid of this UL, this list, and we'll do 3 hello world for being super excited. I think when you modify this, it automatically the server sort of monitors the files within this application, and it automatically generates or automatically sort of updates, compiles, and updates everything. So this is the first step, is just to create our Angular, and what we have to do is so let's put in some steps here, which is development process. Let's do that, and we'll put it down here. So one of the first things that we had to do was install Nodejs to get npm, which is a node package manager. And you just have to go to the Node.js site to get that. And then the next thing that we had to do is go in and install the Angular client. Angular CLI, and this is done via npm. Install Angular client via npm. Lordy. And this installs npm. And then we use Angular client to ng new to do creates it creates our Angular project, and it pulls in a bunch of dependencies that it needs, and Angular modules are a bunch of those, are some of the things that we need. And then we did ng serve, which will go in and which compiles and runs the Angular app. So that's the client. It's pretty straightforward. We can do some cool stuff here. We'll just demo some non back-end magic with Angular. But that's the initial setup of the client. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to have some sort of processing on the server side so that we can retrieve data, we can update data, etc. So the first thing we're going to do is create a Lambda function that returns a list of to-do items, and then we're going to create an API gateway, an API so that that's connected to the Lambda function so that we can access it via regular web type access. And we can incorporate that into our Angular project. All right, so first things first, let's go into the Lambda service admin here and create a new function, and let's call it to do get items, and we'll just choose an existing role, and we'll use this Lambda basic execution, which really comes from AWS out of the box. Let's create this function. We're using Node.js 6.0 or 6.1, and we can just save this. I mean, it's already saved. Let's do a test. All it does is it returns whatever is in this particular parameter, which is a string right now. Let's do test. Let's do test. Blah, blah, blah. Do I need to save it first here? I already saved it. Oh, here we go. Execution details, hello from Lambda, etc. So, and I had already previously created this to do get items test on a previous run. But let's do configured test event. You can give parameters to the Lambda function, and if you look at the code itself, if you look at exports handler, event is the parameter that's being sent to this Lambda function, and you can act on that. You can give it an object with a bunch of different fields, and you can use those fields to sort of filter, the data that you're getting back. But let's do something here a little bit more complex than hello world. Let's create the to do items array, and this array is going to have a bunch of objects in it. We'll just make it generic here. We'll have a name. We'll call it do laundry, might be one thing that you're doing. We'll give it a description, fun stuff, and then we'll add a couple more items here. Go shopping and bring some money, and then maybe see a movie or something like that. See Justice League. Everybody loves Justice League. Alright, and then the only thing we need to do is return, we can return the array probably, but I like to return an object instead, so we'll call it result and return it as, just return this status field along with it, as well as the items, which is the to do items. Check out the contacts menus that or the context help it gives too. It's pretty awesome. Var result status items to do items. For some reason it doesn't like that, but it might be because it's not being used. Let's see. Let's give this result. Oh, there's no equals there. Okay. So now let's do a save, and then let's test it. And it should return the object itself. So we created the Lambda function. Let's go and create an API that is connected to that. So find your API gateway service, and we'll create an API, call it to do, create the API, and then we'll add a resource, and we'll just call this to do list, or to do items. Hit create resource, and then we'll create a method on here, and we'll use the get a method for HTTP. Check that we're using a Lambda function, and we'll find our Lambda function in a particular region, which is, for me, is east. Call it to do get items, and then hit save. Click OK, and everything is connected. You've got this API that we created that is to do items resource with a get method on it that's going to call our to do get items Lambda function. And then we are going to deploy the API so we can actually get the URL for this. Do a new stage, prod, hit deploy. And now we have, let's find the method so we can call that, and we'll have the full URL for that particular HTTP method. And let's go in and actually we can just open this in a new tab. And you can see, oh, there it is. There's my JSON object with my status is just okay, items, the name, do laundry, description, etc. It's my array of items there. So now we've created a API gateway API that we can access via the web, and we have a Lambda function that has code that's going to get executed. For now, it returns just this hard-coded array. At some point, we'll incorporate MongoDB into that so that it's a lot more it's real data. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is incorporate our API gateway, our Lambda function, into our NG client. So what that's going to require is implement ng init on in our Angular client, and then go in and use this HTTP service to invoke to invoke our API, and then we'll just add a list that iterates through the result. And some of this I'm going to have to Google because it's been a little bit since I've done this from scratch, and I have reference apps, but I'm not going to reference them. So if you were just doing this by yourself and you had nothing, this is sort of how I would go about trying to figure it out. Alright, so what we need to do is include this ng init as some of the things that we import. I think it's called ng in, let's call it on init, and then come here and do implements on init, and then we have to define a method called ng on init, and then we need to import this HTTP module. So let's do import from @angular /HTTP, I believe, and then I think it's called HTTP. Let's import the module and HTTP itself, and then you have to create a constructor so that Angular knows to inject the HTTP component or service into your component. So let's create a constructor, and let's declare a private HTTP of type HTTP, and that sort of automatically creates an internal field called HTTP that's of type HTTP. So on ng init, what we can do is get user URL that we created, the API gateway, and let's see what that is. We can invoke that method. Let's see. I think this is the guy, and let's put this in here, and let's call HTTP. See, this .http .get is a method that we need to use, and you give it the URL that we created there, and we're gonna do a to promise just to simplify this this call, and it requires a function, and it's going to return the result or provide the result in that callback function, and to promise dot then, and then you can also do dot you can also provide another function if there's an error. And let's sort of organize this a little bit. You have a function, result is that, this is the success, this is the fail function. And this is succinct, but this is not necessarily the way I would code it in real life. But this will do for now. Is this here? Yep, okay. So that's the code. Let's see if it works. We probably need to create I'm just going to call it items, an array. Items equals to some sort of array. And then what we should do is when it comes back is to go in and say this dot items equals to result dot items, because if you remember, and I think we have to qualify this as any because it typically expects a type, then won't complain. We're not converting the JSON object that's being brought back to the client, so we'll just use these anonymous types. And now let's go back to this, go to the terminal and invoke ngserve again. So again, you can go to the search bar, go to terminal, and change directories to this particular folder, but I have a shortcut to bring up the terminal within the selected folder. So if look at the current directory, it's my to-do app, so I'm going to do ngserve. Oh, let's try that again. ngserve. Oh, it's already in use. Interesting. Why is it already being used? Let's see. Let's try it. Alright, I'm going to resolve that. Okay, I think I figured it out. So when you go in and go into debug mode on MacBook, it's Option Command I, and I looked at the console error. I got this error that says, "Hey, no provider for HTTP." So it's a code error. So if we go back to our module, you have to provide this provider list. So because we're injecting HTTP into our app component, we need to sort of declare that. So let's take this line here and put it here and do something like provider is HTTP, which sort of tells Angular that at some point in my app, I'm going to use, or my module, I'm going to use HTTP. So I think I might have been able to put that here as well. Can I do this? Let's see. Providers, yeah, I could have done that here too, but since I'm going to be using it in a bunch of places, I can do it at the module level. But the the provider dependency is sort of hierarchical, so wherever you declare them, they're going to probably use the same instance. Alright, so this is saved, and then let me refresh this. Still getting the no provider for connection back end. I don't know where that is. Can we do HTTP module? Let's do that too. Let's see. Back to here. Let's try HTTP module. And refresh that. Alright, so at some point we're going to find what module it's complaining about. So let me go and figure out what that is. Okay, so the fix for that is pretty straightforward. Instead of declaring these as providers, we just import that particular module, and that should allow us to use this as and inject it into our application. But the error that I get next is this guy, which is if I refresh it, it'll say something like erg. Let's remove this HTTP module. The error I get is no access control allowed, header is present, blah blah blah. So this is the cross-site scripting errors that is something you typically get. So okay, so the way that we enable cross-site scripting is let's go in and select this get method and do this resource action and do enable CORS, and it gives you the default values, get options, and these allow control headers stuff, and the allow origin, which is like what websites you want to come from. For now, let's just select everything. Hit enable CORS, yes, replace existing CORS, blah blah blah, it's doing all that. And then let's go in and deploy the API again, and we're putting in the production stage, hit deploy, and then now it should work. So let's go back to our app here, and hit refresh, and I will get these errors that says cannot set property items of undefined, and I'm pretty sure that's a code error here. And I think it's the this item, because this function, when you call this, it's not really referencing this app component, it's referencing sort of the color of this function, the success function. So what we'll have to do, I think it's outside of here, let's define a var me equals to this. And then let's do, instead of this.items, do me.items. That might work. Let's see if it does. This is not the best fix, by the way. This is not the best way to sort of set this up using promises. Let's see. So let's go back to here, and that fixed the error. Just to verify, let's make sure that's correct. And what we can do is we can do some binding here. Let's go to app component, and let's create a list, and let's do ng, let's do ul, not that, and then we can do list item and ng repeat, I believe, and what's the syntax exactly? Is it item for items, maybe? And let's put in item.name, maybe. I bet you that's wrong. Haha. Let's take a look at ling item. Is it 4? Oh, sorry, ng4. Is it ng4? I think. Let's try it again. Nope. Let's look at the right syntax here. Angular 2 ng4. What's the syntax for it? Give me something quick. Give me something quick. Oh, start ng4. Okay, sure. Alright, let's do star ng4, and then let item of, gotcha. Let item of items. Let's see if that works. Darn you. Still doesn't like it. Okay, I think I figured this out. It is a coding error. This one is, it should end with UL instead of LI. Huh, too easy. Alright, let's try it again and see. Okay, so now I'm getting stuff back. And I went in and went to this code and just went and did this console. It should bind, it should bind to this items object, and it should print out those items, but for some reason it's not, so I'll have to figure that out. Okay, I think I figured it out. I think what's happening is the data that's being brought back is not really JSON objects. So if we look at this, the response, we've got a body object there, and it's got this string, status, etc. Looks like this is a string, and it doesn't see it as JSON. So what we'll have to do is convert the result underscore body into JSON. We'll just have to parse that. So in here, what we'll do is let's do JSON.parse, and then the string is the result dot underscore body, and then within there is going to be the items object once the string is parsed into a JSON object. So this should work, and voila. What we've got is what we have is our Angular client, which calls an API gateway, and Lambda is returning data to it, and we'll incorporate MongoDB into this as well. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is incorporate MongoDB on our data side so that we can actually interact with real data and update and get data. So the first thing we'll do is we can go to the Mongo site and register Mongo Lab site. Let's see, is it Mongo Lab? Let's see where it is. MLab, sorry. MLab, and we can sign up. And let's go and create a new account. Call it Leaping Bots, I believe. Do Apollo at bleepingbots.com. What is, okay, Bleeping Bots, and then let's create a password. I'm going to change it, obviously. Let's just call it Bleeping Bots 123. Hey, it's a very strong password. Not really. Alright, create account. Oh geez. Select all squares with vehicles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bike. Does it count as a vehicle? Let's say no. Alright, and then select all squares with vehicles. This one, and verify. Alright, so now we have, we need to verify the email. So I actually have an email. Let's go to, what is it called? Work mail, blah, blah, blah. This guy. Okay, let me log in. No. So let's verify the email there, blah, blah, blah. Done. And let's do, we can create private environment, Mongo, none exist. Mongo deployments, create new. And let's do shared, that's free. Or let's do sandbox, which is shared, or which is free. User, blah, blah, blah. Continue. And east is fine, because that's where our Lambda is anyway. And let's just call it my to-do database. Continue. Blah, 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 blah. Not a lot of space there. Submit order. Okay. Let's try a different name. To do, oh, hello. Can I change it? To do example. Hit continue. Submit order. Okay. I don't know why to do is not a good name, but apparently it's not. Okay, so we created this to-do database. So now the only thing we need to do is incorporate MongoDB into, or actually we have to create a new set of code or new project for our Lambda code because we have to import or incorporate the MongoDB library. So we'll do that next. Alright, so go back to your terminal again. You should be in your to-do folder. Go up, create a directory called to-do Lambda. And change to that directory. And then we'll create a new npm, a new package here. Let's do npm init. And package name is to do Lambda. We'll just take everything as the default. No git repository. And enter yes. And now we can open up that folder. Just do file open. And let's go find our to-do Lambda here. Hit open. And then what you'll see is this package JSON. There's really no files in this particular folder. The main file is index.js. It's not really created. But let's go ahead and import Mongo. So let's go back to make sure you're in the correct directory to do Lambda and do npm install MongoDB. And that will pull in the node modules all the different packages, all the different files that we need to use for our Lambda function. So it did that. And next we'll actually add some code that's going to query against an actual Mongo database. Okay, so before we create the access to MongoDB, I actually want to create the Lambda code that's going to be used for this initially. So let's go back to Lambda real quick. I think I have to refresh this. Notice like what's in here is the just the one file that's being used, but in order to use MongoDB or any other package within Lambda, you actually have to bring it up as a zip file. So upload a zip file or Amazon or from your S3 bucket, but let's do zip file for now. So what we need to do is actually add some code here and have it compile or transpile and import all these node modules that contains all of the modules that we're going to be using. So let's take a little bit of code and let's add a new file here. Let's call it app.js, and let's go and just copy and paste this code just to sort of demonstrate that we're actually doing stuff here. Exports, and let's do something different here. Let's add one more thing so we know it's like different code. So actually I don't want to put it in node modules. I want to move it over to, can I do this to here? Okay, so we've got app.js. The only thing we need to do now is, I don't think we really need to transpile anything because this is straight JavaScript. We're not doing TypeScript. We're not doing any type of web packing or anything like that. So let's go to Finder and let's go to here. This is the to-do Lambda, and let's create a zip file that contains that's going to contain those particular files. Okay, so the way that you could create a zip file manually, there's a zip file command, but you could also do compress. So if you select all your items and hit compress, these 11 items is going to create an archived zip file. So what we should do is go back to our Lambda management console. By the way, this is going to be an important tool that we're going to use later on just to test things locally and not have to upload stuff in production while we're developing. So go back to Lambda management console and let's do upload a zip file. Let's change this to app handler. I believe that's how I've set it up before. Click on upload, find our archive zip file, which is under AWS To-Do Lambda, and there's our archive zip. And let's see what it does here. I believe that's set up correctly. And hit save. Once you've selected your archive zip file, then when you hit save, it's going to upload it. Then we should be able to test. Let's see what it does. Test. It's over, details, blah, 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 status okay, and we got that do laundry XX stuff. So that's how you can sort of incorporate a whole project, a whole set of files that has the required modules that you're going to need and the required code. You can break up your Lambda function into multiple files, and you'd have to zip all that up into the Lambda function instead of relying on a single file. Alright, so we're able to upload our multiple files to this Lambda function and take advantage of other modules other than our file that we've created for this Lambda function. So what I suggest is uploading or downloading or installing this Lambda local npm package so that you can run your Lambda function and test it locally without having to package or zip it up and upload it and then doing the test on the web. I would just try to do it locally. So do this npm install -g lambda local, and then we can execute our Lambda function from our own local machine. So let's do that real quick. I have terminal open, so open up terminal, search terminal, change to documents, development. Where am I at? AWS Lambda to do Lambda. Where am I at? To do Lambda. And if you look at the parameters for this, you do Lambda local dash L. That's, I guess it's, what is, I don't even know what dash L is. Oh, the Lambda path, which is your current directory, and then the entry file, which is app.js. So let's do that real quick. Let's do Lambda dash local dash L for Lambda, and it's app.js. So when we do that, let's try to spell it correctly. Lambda, and why does it not like it? Let's see. That's H handler dash E. Oh, I guess dash E is the request. Let's see what it's doing. So maybe we need to create an event file to give to Lambda. So let's do this. Let's do, got this thing selected this time. New file, and let's call it the get list request.json, and let's just give it a well, I want to leave it empty, but let's say username is Apollo, and probably needs quotes on these. Oh. Okay, now let's do our command line dash E get list request.json. There we go. So that's pretty much how you create the command or run your Lambda function locally and use all of the node modules that it needs. Okay, so let's make it easier on ourselves by creating a script in package.json that will automatically run this Lambda script. So let's go to package.json and create a run area here, or function here. And let's do, what do we say, lambda dash local dash L, and give it the app.js, and the event file is get list request.json. So save that, and then we can go back to the command line and hit npm run, and it should execute that Lambda local script. And npm run script. All right, let's do Lambda local dash L. Let's do it the hard way. npm run. Yeah, that's sort of okay, I guess. Why don't we call it npm local, or call it Lambda instead. Let's see. Run Lambda. Okay, it gives us a little bit of a shortcut. We don't have to type out the full lambda dash local dash l.app.js blah blah blah. So this is good enough for now. All right, another way to start this is to use the name, the script name start, and that will automatically, or not automatically, it's a shorter way to sort of run the program. So if you type in npm start, then it will run that start script. Of course, you can do npm run start as well, but that's sort of redundant. But run npm start is like the shortcut way to run this script at a start. You can also add other scripts when we you know, not test, but let's do, I guess it would be test, like test create. You could do something similar at some point where we'll have to do this, but possibly give it a different set of data. So get list, let's do test by user, and then you could get a get user request, just to sort of, once we start enhancing, we can start creating different scripts to test our various parts of the code. Okay, just for the fun of it, I am going to start importing all the Mongo stuff, and I'm going to use a reference app for this. So let's do this piece. In order to use Mongo, you have this Mongo client library that you're going to add to the top of your app.js file. And then at some point we're going to connect, and I'm just going to actually find where that code is, and this is the code for it. But it's somewhat different because they're not using classes in this. We're going to make this as succinct as possible. So we're going to connect using a connection string, and we're not using this or anything like that for now. This is in the original code of this is in a class. You don't need to use bind because we're not using an instance really of anything. So we're going to do, let's define this function, and it's called connect, and it's going to take a connection string, and the code for that obviously is this. And then let's define another function called onConnected. OnConnect complete, and I'm sure that's going to take a parameter. And what do we have here? Oh, reference code. So onConnected, it's going to take this error and this database object. Can I do it here? Nope. Let's define this function. And then let's just do console.log error. And then let's do, it's going to call this function onConnected. And let's create this function onConnected DB. Don't want to get it too nested. And let's see what it's going to do here. Typically onConnected is just going to go and do typically we're going to iterate through stuff. So let's take a look at this Mongo get all records. It's doing this filter, get all records using filter function F12. Where am I at? F12. Connect to Mongo onConnected. Then this is going to do process the cursor items. So I'm going to create something similar. So onConnected here is going to cursor for each DB collection. Let's put something up here that tells us what the connection string is, and then collection name is going to be to do list. Let's just call it to do for now. And then let's rehabilitate this a little bit. We'll have a filter function that sort of where's that cursor coming from? And this is a collection. Is this, where is this cursor? Oh, there we go. It's taking this cursor. Where are you at? All right, so this filter function is going to take a collection from the database with a specific name, and it's going to return a cursor, and it's going to have this other function that it's going to call as it's receiving the individual documents from the database. So this is going to build out. Let's see, process cursor item. I'm sure there's some sort of item that it's processing there. Blah, blah, blah. Let's take a look at what a filter function might look like. It's essentially this. So let's do return. Right, it's some sort of MongoDB query or MongoDB function. And then on process cursor items is going to go and handle each record as it's being returned. So this one, get all records using filter, is a class that I'm using. Let's copy and paste this one. Getting rid of all the this stuff in here. All right, don't need this dot has error. So if it's not null, I'll just remove this for now, and let's do console.log. Maybe we should keep this has error just in case. Var has error equals to false, and remove the this stuff. All right, so let's clean this code up a little bit more. So we said we're going to keep this has error. So just gotta get rid of some of this code here and here. Let's do log console.log log that, blah blah blah, and documents completed. Oh, okay, so this is gonna take, this is some other code. So send documents, all it's doing is we are going in and we need to define this documents array. So let's go here and do var documents equals to an array. Hopefully I have audio input. Let's see. Testing. Dang it, I don't. All right, I do have audio input, so let's keep going at this. If error is not equal to that, if document is null, actually, I think this is what's coming in is document. Let me check that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, error and document are the parameters that is coming into this cursor process. All right, so error is that, console, document is null, and I don't need this. We are going to create a send documents function. Send documents, and all it's doing is passing it to the response. This callback, I think. Where's the contacts? Let's see. So send documents would do the default behavior is blah blah blah. It'll do this response records, this documents. Let's do, actually it should look like this. I think the response is, I bet you it's this contacts object. No, it's the callback object. So let's do callback, give it a status is there. Let's do items is what it is expecting, and it's sending the documents array that we have. And then let's go back to this and clean it up a little more. Document, that means if it's null, if the incoming document is null, it means we reach the end of that set of records. So let's just do send documents. And otherwise, let's push the document onto our array of documents. And I think that's pretty much it. Let's do return here. All right, so cross your fingers, hopefully that works. So the other piece of information that we need is a connection string. So if you go back to MLab, where is it? MLab, and take a look at your MongoDB instance that you created. Ours is the DS13 blah blah blah. Just click on that, and it'll give you the MongoDB connection. And I just need this last piece at DS1379 blah blah blah, and that this is the DB name. So let's go here, replace that. Don't know what this pound is for. Let's see. Oh, that's part of the password. Let's see. Erg. Let's try that again. I just want to copy this piece. Darn you. Well, let's just copy the whole thing. I just need this part. Okay, so this is going to MongoDB, username, user password. This is the machine, the port, and the database. Collection name is to do. I don't think we created one yet, but we can create it here. So add a collection. Its name is going to be to do. Hit create, and then that should set us up to get data. Let's see if we can go in and add a document. Add collection. Can I click on this? Yes, and then add, what are we looking for here? We're looking for name and description, I believe. Where are we at? Where are we at? Oh, here. Function, result, and I don't think we need to do, what do we need to do here? We just need to do connect. Connect goes through and does on connect completed. So let's call connect connection string, and then it should go through the process. But for the data, we're looking at name and description, and we'll add those. Actually, we can do this. Can we do it this way? All right, let's do add document. I may have to do it one at a time here. Maybe. Can I do that? Or can I? Let's try adding more than one document. See if it does it. Maybe not. And let's change this to ZZZ so we know it's coming from a different place. Create and go back. Oop. Maybe it doesn't like this. Name, description. Alright, let's try that now. Cool. So now we have one page, or one record in there. And now let's add another one. Where can I go? Add document. And let's add the go shopping one. And there's probably better tools out there, obviously, than this web interface. So we'll have a MongoDB populated with some data. Oh, go back. Okay, so we've got two in there. That's good enough for now. So again, we back to our connection string. We have the connection string. We're going to connect to our MongoDB using Mongo client, and when the connection is done, it's going to call on call connected call completed. Make sure there's no error. If there's an error, log it, and call on connected, and it's going to filter the collection that I'm going to indicate in my database collection, and it's going to say, hey, for this collection, find essentially everything. So there's no criteria provided for that method, and it's going to iterate through all documents that are returned by MongoDB, and it's going to process each one. It's going to call this onProcess cursor item, and it's going to go and make sure there's no errors, blah blah blah. If there's a document, if there's no document, that means we've reached the end of the cursor or the end of the set of records, and we can just send the documents that's been all the documents that's been returned. If there is a document, then we add it to our array. At some point we call send documents. It does this callback, which sends the data back to the client, and it's going to set a status of OK, because that's what we're expecting, and send the items property is going to have the documents that we retrieved from MongoDB. So that should work, and let's give it a try. We're going to do npm start, which will call our Lambda local app.js using this get user request JSON. So cross your fingers, see what happens. Boom, 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 and we get, oh, hold on. Let's see, what is it doing? It's returning the old stuff. Let's go back to the code and look at app.js. Maybe we didn't save it. Okay, we didn't save it. Let's actually take out this one piece that does this part so it doesn't do any weird stuff. All right, saved, run it again. Okay, so we get some errors. Password contains illegal characters, which is colon bleeping bots. Let's remove this pound. And clear this and run it again. And I get no errors, but then I'm not getting anything coming back either. So can do some logging here. Oh, did it? npm start is what I want. Info start request ID blah blah blah. Task timed out after 3 seconds. Maybe it's the wrong username and password. It's going to the right. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. I'm on a particular network and it won't let me connect out. I'm on a particular wireless that won't let me connect out. So I'm going to continue this task after I'm off this network. Okay, so I'm going to run. I got on a good network here, so I'll do npm start again to run my local Lambda, and I get this authentication failed issue. And even though I have my Mongo or MLab login, we actually have to create some users here. So let's add a database user, and let's call it to do, and password is to do 123, to do 123, and hit create. And go back to our connection string and code here. So let's enter to do and to do 123 and see if that fixes it. Run npm start again, clear this out. Npm start, boom, and now we have an issue, another issue, but at least we got past one. So we have db collection is not a function. Okay, so I researched this issue a little bit, and the problem is if you look at package JSON, we're imported this version 3.01 of MongoDB, and that version is the function signatures are a little bit different. So what we're gonna have to do is uninstall this version of Mongo and install a specific version. So I googled it, and what you have to do is install this particular version. So why don't we do first do npm uninstall MongoDB, and let's do in the right folder. Okay, so npm uninstall MongoDB, and it should remove all those node module files, so there's nothing there. And then we can just go back to package.json and do dependencies and just copy paste this particular piece right here. It's going to install this version. As a matter of fact, let's do, just gonna use a reference project here, package.json, and this is the one that I know works with this code. Whoops. Oh, I'm here. So now if we do npm install, it should import the files for that. Npm install, and it should pull down all the MongoDB dependencies. If we go back to node modules, it should have all that in there. Alright, so now let's do npm start again and see if that works. Blah blah blah, and there we go, we got our 2 records back. So now we can again zip up everything in here and upload it to our Lambda function, and we should be able to use it in our other project. What is it? In our Angular client. So let's do that. Can I go ahead and take this, really just need, let's take everything here and copy this over to, well, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. Hold on. I'm going to do another script based on, I created this zip function called zipit. And what I want to do is create another script within our package JSON. Let's see if it works. Blah, 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 test. Let's do zipit and paste this whole expression here. Zip, create an archive, zip, node modules. We don't need this utils. We just need app.js and package.json. So it's going to zip everything in the node modules content, the script file, and the package.json. So save that and see if we can do npm run zipit. Yep. So now it's created an archive file that we can upload to our Lambda function. So let me refresh this to make sure I'm still good to go. Alright, so let's do upload zip file again and select that archive zip and then hit save. Should upload that 1 meg file and then we can test it. We've hard-coded the Mongo connection for now. Hit test. And we should get something back here. Haha. Blah, 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 blah. Task timed out after 3 seconds. I don't remember. I think there's some. I think it has to do. Let's see if it printed stuff out. Connected. Database to do example. Children. Does it have methods here? I don't know if it's picking up. Connected database to do example. This is the DB children topology, client info, options, read concern S. I don't see collections, but it should be the right one. Don't need to do a deploy. It might have to do with I think there's some other little quirk here. Let me research that a little. Okay, so what we have to do is there is this I guess there's a queuing issue when you're running something in Lambda, and I don't remember the exact context around this, no pun intended. But what you have to do is set this callback waits for empty event loop to false on the context, and I guess it prevents like not setting this to false causes Node.js or the Lambda to sort of wait for some other event to occur. So it just sits there and sits there. Eventually it reaches your Lambda timeout. So what we have to do is set this to false. And I put an event, an environment variable here. So we're going to have to add that to our Lambda function. So let's do, before we do anything, let's do update event loop ignore. And in our Lambda, or in our local Lambda execution, it's not going to be set, but in our Lambda function in AWS, it's going to be set. So let's run this locally to make sure that at least it works correctly locally. So everything comes back, and then let's zip it up again. And then we'll take that and upload it again, and then just set this ignore event loop to yes. And if you go to your Lambda function, you can go here and set this this ignore event loop and set it to yes. So when it runs, it sets the environment variable to ignore event loop to yes. And then let's go ahead and upload it again. And there's actually a AWS Lambda. There's an AWS sort of console that you can use to automatically upload the zipped up file to a particular Lambda that you own. Maybe I'll go over that in another video. But let's save this. And then let's test it again. And then it came back okay, and the data that came back is do laundry zzz fun stuff. So now we can we created a Lambda function that uses MongoDB to actually get data from, and we've set up the MongoDB and MLab. Now we have, we can do other things. It's just getting to-do items. It can also, be used to create new to-do items, edit it, delete it, etc. So let's go back to our API gateway, and we'll make sure that when we call the get function, that it's also returning that. So let's do to-do, and our resource, our get function, we actually need to go to, where's stages at? Stages, to-do, stages, prod, get, and let's open this up in a new tab. And that should also work fine, because just calling Lambda, there's really nothing much that's changed there, so that's still working. And then the next thing that we want to do is go to our Angular client, open recent, to do, and then let's actually, I think I can, I'm just going to run it from the command line here and do ng serve, and then I should be able to go to 4200, and that should, yep, there we go. It got the two items that we're expecting. And just to prove that it's working correctly as well, we can go into our collections, our to-do collection, and add another one. And let's see, add a document. And again, it's going to be name and description. So let's enter name is go to meetup. Go to meetup. Description, let's say Atlanta Unity devs. Hit create and go back. So now we have 3 documents. Now if we go and refresh here, we should see the 3 go to meetup. I don't have a description there, but that's okay. So if we go back to our simple mind here, what we've done is, let's see, we've implemented ng-init, use HTTP service to invoke the API, add a list. We created a Lambda, created an API gateway, and then the other thing that we did was we created a Lambda project, and we we created the Lambda project, and then we learned how to zip up multiple files and upload to Lambda. We created MongoDB in MLab. Yep, there we go. And then after that, we installed MongoDB into our project, into our Lambda project. And then we returned MongoDB data. Let's try MongoDB data through Lambda. And everything was already set up, so we put in those pieces. So we did the API gateway, did Lambda, we did Angular, we did MongoDB. We haven't done Cognito, and right now we're just viewing the to-do list. But the other ones are, I think once you set up the basic framework, the basic architecture for everything, then everything else sort of becomes easy. Other than this Cognito, and there's a video out there that I also created. So go to YouTube and just type in or search for Apollo Cabrera, and there is a video out there called AWS API Gateway with Cognito Authorization. This one has no sound, but it does have little text pop-ups. This one has sound, but it's a little bit sort of like this video, which is I'm sort of diagnosing some things as I'm going through it and sort of reversing course, sort of like I did with the MongoDB version issue. But you get to see some of the trial and errors that you have to do in order to get stuff to work. So I'll add another video that expounds, maybe adds Cognito into this, and obviously if you're going to do authorization, authentication, you'll have to have some sort of login page in here as well as a functionality. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just comment if you have any questions. Not everything that I did is necessarily production ready or the best way to do stuff. I just wanted to create just the basic pieces of the architecture, just to demonstrate that you can create an application sort of serverless using microservices, Lambda functions, without having to manage a data components in a data center. It's just all out there, and you're not really having to worry a lot about hardware and things like that. So hope you enjoyed.